I'm going to share with you how to create a printable where you include two-dimensional shapes. So I have two examples of printables that you can create where you are focusing in on learning 2D shapes with your students. This is a group of flashcards. In a previous video, I shared with you how you can create flashcards using PowerPoint, and I want to show you how to make those flashcards with two-dimensional shapes. Basically, how do you insert 2D shapes into any printable that you want to create, and then we're going to look at how to create like a notes page for your students to write down as they're learning about different shapes. So it could be all about triangles, quadrilaterals, two-dimensional shapes. For this one, we're going to get started by inserting a table, and we're going to do 2 columns and 8 rows. Then we're going to go to layout and adjust the settings of the table. Oh, let me go back to table design and switch it to a no style table, and go back to layout and increase the length of the table, and then we're going to increase the width of the cells as well. There is the foundation for our flashcards. I showed this to you on the previous video, and here we're just going to insert a few shapes. So you can use this for vocabulary review, to play a memory game, match game, or where students can take the picture and write the name of the shape on the back of it, or they can write attributes on the back of the shape. Be creative with these flashcards featuring two-dimensional shapes. To get our shape in our cells, we're going to go to insert and then go over to shapes, and we're going to focus on quadrilaterals. So I'm going to start with a rectangle and create that rectangle here and let go. Then I'm going to go back to insert and go back to shapes. We're going to do a rhombus next. Then we are going to add in a trapezoid. And of course, you can turn these shapes any direction that you want. And then we're going to repeat that rhombus, but extend the sides, the top and bottom, so that it's just a parallelogram and not a rhombus. If I want to change the color, I'm going to select all of the shapes. I did that by holding the command key down and then clicking on the shapes, which selects them or deselects them. So now I'm going to go up to shape format, go over to shape fill, so you can give it a specific color and a specific outline if you want, or we can make a black and white copy. So if we have a white fill with a black line, and then I'm going to make the weight of the line 4.5. So there are our shapes, our 2D shapes, quadrilateral specifically. So now I'm going to go to insert a text box to write the names of each of the shapes. So we have a rectangle, I'm going to duplicate that by hitting Command D or Control D if you have a PC, and we have a rhombus, and we have a trapezoid, and a parallelogram. So then I'm going to select each of the text boxes, and we're going to change the size and the font. to all fit on one line. We're going to center them. And there we go. So here's our parallelogram. And I'm just going to bring this down here. And then this one down here. I'm just going to select these all so I can line them up. So I go to Shape Format, Arrange, Align, Center. And then I'm going to go to Align, Distribute Vertically so that they're all equally distributed. Alright, so there are our two-dimensional shapes as well as their words. And then the last thing I'm going to do is change the line to be like that dash or dotted line. So I selected the table. I'm going to Table Design, and then I'm going to select the type of line I want on the border. So I'm going to go with this first one, or actually the second one, more of a dotted dash. Make sure my pen color is black, and then I'm going to go to Borders and select all borders. And there's that dotted line students can cut on. I think I do want to change it to that first dash. I like that one a little bit better, so they definitely know that we want them to cut these out. So the next type of examples are kind of like a note sheet that students can take as they're learning about the different triangles or different two-dimensional shapes. Whatever focus that you have for your shapes, we're going to create like a notes page. So we're going to insert a new table, and we want it to have 3 columns and 4 rows in each column. Let me go back. Let me insert that blank page again. Here we go. Insert table, 3 columns with 4 rows. We're going to go to the table design, click on no style, and then go to layout, and then increase. And we're going to bring this up. I do want to leave space for like a title, and I'm actually going to make this first row a little bit smaller because that's where we're going to put our labels, but everything else can be stretched out a tad bit more. And then we are going to extend the width of the cells. That's perfect. We're going to have a column for picture, column for the name, and then a column for the attributes. So I do want the picture to be a little bit smaller, and then the name as well. We want more space for students to write here. So now we're going to go to Insert Text Box. Put it up here, and then type in the word picture. Select it, go to Home, center it, make sure it's in the middle of the box, change the font, and then increase the size. That looks good. And I'm going to select it and duplicate it. Again, Command D on your keyboard or Control D if you have a PC. I'm going to change this to name. I'm going to hit duplicate again. Stretch this out and change this to attributes, or some people like to put characteristics. Alright, so now we're going to add in, let's add in one more text box for our title. All about triangles. So you can always do multiple pages to do categorize triangles by their side length, or organize them by their angles. So we're just going to focus on sides. So I'm going to go to Insert and choose some triangles that they have. So I'm going to go to this triangle and make like an equilateral triangle where all the sides are the same. See if we can get a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to go back to Insert, Shapes. So those three sides are the same. So I'm looking for another triangle, or I'm going to create another triangle where the sides are not the same. So the same triangle, but I'm going to make the two sides here the same, and then the bottom one is different to represent an isosceles triangle. And then we're going to go back and insert one more time. You can also duplicate the triangles if you want. I'm going to do this right triangle and make sure that the sides are all different. To represent a scalene triangle where none of the sides have the same length. And you can leave it blue. You can change these to colored triangles, or you can make them black line where they have a white fill and just a black outline, and then thicken that the weight of the line. So those are your options. Be creative with your printables, and it all depends on what kind of ink you have with your printer. If you have access to a color printer, then great. So then we're going to leave the spot for name blank, but for attributes you can leave it blank and have them write freehand, or you can add lines if you like. So I'm going to insert another text box, and I wanted to stretch the size of the cell, and then I'm going to hold the shift key down on my keyboard and then press on the dash button on the keyboard and just spread it out all the way down the cell. So there is your text box with lines. Now I'm going to duplicate this and place it down here in the second box, and then duplicate it again. Now if these lines are too small for your students and you want to give them more space, something you can do is get rid of the bottom section of lines, and then if you select them all again and go back to the Home tab, if you find your button that has to do with line spacing, you can increase the line spacing. So that's going to 1.5, and we're just going to extend that. And then for the last one, you might say, okay, the line on the second row is still there's still not enough space, so we can increase the line spacing again and go to 2.0 or 2.5 or 3.0 if you like. So if you want it to be 3.0, we can spread it out like that. Let's see what 2.5 looks like. Or let's go back to 2.0 and then just delete some of the bottom lines. Okay, so you have more options there, but that's how you can create a few printables using two-dimensional shapes, and how you can resize the shape, add color to the shape, make it pop out with the outlines and the weight of the lines, and also use it as flashcards. So I hope this tutorial was helpful in adding another resource that you can create for your students.